Okay, good morning, everyone. Today is the 24th of July, 4 days before we celebrate our Independence Day here in Peru. Today is a very special day, so that's why for the first time I'm wearing a suit, because we have 4 marvelous, important, wonderful, extraordinary, what else can I say, professionals: Johnny Cárdenas, Ralph Grayson, Julio Valladares, and Arturo Phil. Good professionals, wonderful friends. Thank you for being here. So as usual, let me share my screen. Okay, okay, let's see, not this one, but this one. Okay, here it is. Give me a minute. Okay, it's loading, I guess. Okay, today we have our 78th International English Online meeting. Let's reflect a little bit about life. Anybody who wants to read this quote and express his or her opinion, please, anyone?
Well, sometimes those who challenge you most teach you best, and that's true. I think in my life, even in my most recent professional life, I think I've learned a lot, from the people that have challenged me. It's I value a lot people that challenge, but not only challenge me, but also like in the case of my line managers, for example, give you like the beginning. They introduce you to the beginning of a series of things. And so they capture your attention and they sparkle your curiosity to explore more. Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
that's a very important word in education: curiosity. The second one, please, anyone else? Remember, there will be a free ticket to Australia for the person who speaks the most. One-way ticket. Anybody, please, do not be afraid.
No, because of no.
Nobody wants to read?
Can read. A challenge only becomes an obstacle when you bow to it. And it's really important that we look at challenges as an opportunity to grow and prepare to handle them.
Yes, thank you so much, dear President. Next one. Next one, Medalit, maybe you can help us?
I read. Okay. Yeah, we don't grow when the things are easy. We grow when we face challenges. That's really true. It's the most, when we experience difficult things, I think we grow more.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's what I...
Because if life were easy, it wouldn't be life, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and the last quote, anybody who wants to read it?
Me, I want to read it.
Please, Liliana Herboso.
Yeah. The only way to make change is to see these challenges that we face as opportunities. Written by Adam Below, an educator, no?
Yeah. Where are you from, Liliana, by the way?
Here in Lima.
Okay. Thank you so much. So if you want to watch the other more than 78 international meetings, they are recorded and you can watch them in our YouTube channel. Let me see who is presenting in a few days. We will have Ivan Suazo from Costa Rica, who will be talking about examining the source of our words and actions. And then we will have the second group of professors from Bolivia, Beatriz Erazo, Maria Elba Zambrana, Jose Mendevil, and Katia Teran. They will be talking about teaching and learning English in Bolivia, reality and challenges. Then we will have the third group. It will be Mauricio Arango, Gladys Rodriguez, Jose Lobo, and Ulises Cordova. They will be talking about what's going on in Colombia. And of course, we will have a professor from Argentina, Mexico, Guatemala, Costa Rica, Ecuador, and other more countries. Now, who is presenting today? Four wonderful friends, as I said before. Okay, we have Arturo Phil. Let me find the information. First, let's start with the lady, Johnny. Johnny Cardenas Cornelio has a doctorate and a master's degree in linguistics from the National University of San Marcos, and a degree in English Spanish from the National University of Education. She read the Master of Teaching English as a Foreign Language at Piura University. She's permanent full-time professor at San Marcos University. Her research areas focus on social linguistic and topics related to the teaching learning of English and Spanish as a foreign language. She has been a former trainer of English teacher for Ministry of Education and British Council Peru, former fellow of the British Council Peru for her participation in Humvee summer course. She is part of the Sociolin research group and a research member of Applied Linguistic Institute, SILA, former executive director of the Language Center of the Faculty of Arts and Human Sciences of San Marcos University, and she belonged to past IATEFL board and worked actively with Mrs. Leo Marin. Thank you so much, Johnny. Arturo Fields holds a degree in law from Pontificia Universidad Católica del Perú, as well as a degree in education from Universidad de Piura. He has been a teacher of English for the last 4 years. You started very young, Arturo. And he held a position for 5 years. Currently, he works as General Director at Camelot Teacher Training Center, institution he founded 30 years ago, being responsible for the ELT management division and the business English programs, as well as president of the Sociedad de Profesores de Inglés del Perú, association he founded 14 years ago. This year, he has been elected as board member of the Lima Chamber of Commerce, representing the education committee of this institution. Congratulations, Arturo. For the period 22-23, he's also the president and founder of the International Institute of Strategic Studies in ELT based in Peru. Thank you so much, Arturo. Julio Valladares holds his MA in TEFL and bachelor's degree in education. He also holds a diploma in competencias directivas from the Business School of Universidad de Piura and a diploma in critical thinking by the University of Oregon. He has been a teacher of English for more than 30 years. He has worked for Britannico, Richmond, Camelot as teacher and teacher trainer, and has delivered academic lectures in different places in Peru and in Bolivia, Mexico, China, and the USA. He's currently working for Universidad de Piura. He's in charge of the Teacher Development Center of the university's language school, center manager for Cambridge exams, and the academic coordinator of the MA in TEFL program offered by Universidad de Piura. And finally, my friend Ralph Grayson is former English programs manager at the British Council in Peru and currently cultural engagement operations lead in the Americas. As English programs lead, he managed the organization's portfolio of activity in support of education and bilingualism in Peru. During his management, he worked closely with the Ministry of Education in strengthening teachers' English language skills, as well as their empowerment by improving their pedagogical strategies. Ralph Grayson has worked in the world of ELT for more than 30 years, leading innovation and change projects in areas such as implementation, training, online teaching, learning, among others. And in his current position, he sits in the leadership team in the Americas to oversee the operativity and standards of cultural engagement projects in English, education, and arts across the region. But the most important that I must say about these four great professionals is that they are great people, excellent human beings, because as soon as I called you, you said, yes, 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 thank you so much, because it's a Sunday morning, you could be with your families, with your children, grandchildren, but you decided to give us part of your time. So something you want to say, Arturo, Johnny, Ralph, and Julio, before we start?
Just thank you, Jaime, for the opportunity.
Thank you, dear Arturo.
Likewise. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the invitation. It's always nice to be, you know, in this sort of places, forums, to share, you know, a bit of our, you know, experience with colleagues.
Yes.
Thank you,
Again,
everyone.
yes, thank you, Jaime, once again for organizing this wonderful round table. And I'm sure we are going to give the best of us in order to share with the teachers who are attending also this morning. Thank you,
Thank
Jaime,
you.
once again.
Thank you, dear Johnny. Okay, the first question is, anybody who wants to read the first question, please?
How would you
Hear me.
describe the reality of the teaching learning process in Peru at schools, institutes, and universities?
Thank you, Johnny. So from your personal point of view, what is your overall view of the learning, of the teaching learning process in Peru, not only at the schools, but also at institutes and universities? So who wants to start?
I can do it.
Yeah, me
Please.
too. No
Thank you,
problem.
Julio.
Go ahead.
Okay. I like the question in the sense of you've put teaching learning process, no? Because usually we focus on the teaching.
Yes.
And we forget the learning. And it's something that we should keep paying attention to, since like those processes go hand in hand. And I think our reality, we're still working towards a better teaching learning context throughout Peru. No, we're still working on that. And I think perhaps I don't have the data that Ralph may have, because he, through the British Council, been working on that idea, on that area. But I think we still need to put everything that we have in our heads into practice, to share, though they are now, I would call the worldwide webinar world, no? It's not a web, but it's a worldwide webinar world. But everybody is working through webinars, but I wonder how much of those webinars, as before COVID, we used to have those workshops, no? Great workshops, great speakers. And it's a, well, yes, a wonderful situation, wonderful. But then how much of whatever you learned or whatever you were exposed to, you applied in your class, you know? And when I talk to teachers and I say, what did you like about this? Oh, what's great, but I teach in a state school, but I have a class with 50 students, but I have only 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week, but my principal don't agree or doesn't agree with what we do in class. So I think we have to reduce the buts, no? And work on what we really have in our heads, which, what I don't want to say is like, we always stop at the idea of having good intentions, no? But we should go forward those intentions and those desires. I know that in some parts of Peru, this is working well, but if you go to the mountains, if you go to the jungle, that's so tough, no? I mean, sometimes Minedo, Minister of Education, they want to do some teacher training, and I suppose, Ralph, then you can correct me if I'm wrong, but just to go to a place in the mountains, you have to, okay, you reach the capital of the department, but then to go to a different place, you have to travel 2 or 3 days. And then, so, and you have to do the teacher training they give you like 5 days and you spend 3 days traveling. That's the reality of Peru. That's the reality of Peru, yes. And then we also have to, I think that's my opinion, yes, we should work harder on improving in general, the command of language. I know that in Peru, it's getting better. There have been different programs run by British Council and RELO office to train teachers. But I also know that many of the ones who went to USA or to Britain, when they came back, they didn't do that kind of domino effect. No, they call it butterfly effect, but domino effect. But I said, why not? So they get hired by by the great schools because they've been trained, and then voila, all that money is spent on them, all that effort that was put on them. So I think we need to create conscience on also, not just giving the opportunities, but create conscience in ourselves, because we still have lots of things to do. That's what I have to say.
Thank you so much, Julio. So I will summarize with less bats, less good intentions, but let's do more actions. And also let's apply what we learned, right? Thank you so much, Julio. Arturo? Oh, sorry, Ralph.
Of was first, yes.
Yeah, but basically, I think I like to start positive. I think a lot of I think that of course Julio was rightful in expressing the context that he sees. I like to stay.
Ralph, sorry to interrupt. Sorry, I forgot to say that I was going to play the bad cop in this session. No, really, okay. I remember that. Sorry.
Good to know. Good to know.
Okay.
I forgot that.
Yeah. Well, if we start on a positive note, I think that what Julio has expressed, in terms of the challenges that teachers face in English language teaching in Peru, precisely, I think, show us how resilient our teachers are and how teachers have always, this is not necessarily because of current situation, pandemic, whatever, but teachers have always been creative. And of course, at this point in time, and at this point in history, of course, creativity is at its most, at the peak of in teachers, right? Teachers in Peru, how to deal, of course, with all the challenges that Julio has mentioned. But some other things that we observed in teachers, in English language teachers in Peru, from the perspective, where I am, is that more and more I see that English language teachers in Peru see themselves as a very close community, who are fond of developing themselves, developing professionally through communities of practice that are emerging in different regions of the country. These communities of practice, of course, they come in different sizes and shapes, like WhatsApp groups, like in Facebook pages, Facebook groups, with interesting numbers of teachers who join these communities, and I think that ties to the fact that how the way they address professional development opportunities, as you say, Julio, that self-driven motivation that teachers have in Peru to do things because they see they have little support, etc., precisely gives them the strength to do this kind of activities, like I said, these communities of practice. And they're doing great work, as I see. But of course, we have to remember that the teachers that we are currently working with are precisely the product of a local education system, right? So there's a tendency, of course, to draw from those practices that we precisely sometimes we want to get rid of, and there's a change, process that needs to happen, and that I think it happens in many teachers, right? Many teachers say they don't want to teach like they were taught, so they start innovating. But I agree totally with Julio that these teachers are permanently challenged by the context, right? Throughout the years. I think Arturo knows a lot about history of ELT in Peru, and they've been permanently challenged by the context. And one point that I'm going to go back later, is yes, the limited access of opportunities, but I think that I see it as a limited access to international opportunities, which is linked again to what Julio said. Those few that have had access to some international opportunity, like a specialized training, a study trip, etc., very soon become attractive to the bigger schools or to the public, the private sector, right? just yeah, it's a drawback. Yes, it fires it backfires on us. But I think that we still need to promote those international opportunities. And what I will go back later, because I don't want to take too much time, is of course the provision of opportunities for a global culture, right? Now, teachers are beginning to think that teaching English is not necessarily within the remit, but they can become global teachers, global citizens. I'll come back to that later.
Thank you so much, dear Ralph. Something that I would like to highlight is the development of teachers community like this one, and we need changes and global teaching English also. We all agree with you. Arturo?
Yes, I'm going to try to be in the middle, not playing the bad cop, as Julio says, not the good one. And I would just like to start preparing myself for this event. I came across an interesting thesis by, I think it was Angelina Telente, which I want to give the credit to. And I agree in some of the points that she stated. For example, we all remember that when Peru tried to change the policies in the teaching of English, it started from an analysis, as many things have to be done before we do something, where a series of deficiencies were spotted. Unfortunately, it had a wrong beginning. Why? Because it addressed basically public schools teachers instead of public and private. Okay, there's a first division that we shouldn't have. I have talked about this with Julio a lot, and I believe that we should have it as a country vision, public and private together. That's one of the points I think we are not working on yet. Okay, another thing, we all remember that with a former president back in 2014, the Ministry of Education, Mineru, declared the teaching of English a matter of national interest. We all remember that. Everybody said, finally. But then this program has been implementing different actions aimed at solving the problems that exist in the field of English language teaching, as we know, at the level, again, of public institutions. The private, that's the question that still is there. However, these efforts were stopped almost completely by a new decision that declared the teaching of English a matter of no public interest for the meantime. And I think Ralph knows about this too. As the ministry decided that it's not a public, as a national interest anymore. And there are other more important things to look after. Another thing is that based on this new decision that the government took, there is no diagnosis of the situation and not even a plan or strategy aimed at overcoming possible problems, allowing a comprehensive view of the status of English language teaching in Peru, which includes the public and private sector. I think that that's the starting point. I think, I don't know, I think Julio and other people agree with me. We have to go together as a country. It's not public or private. That's the old story. That's the old story. There's a lot of things we can share, a lot of things that we can help each other. And finally, I believe that we need to build what I call the global profile of the Peruvian English teacher, compared with the requirements established to define the profile for education of the 21st century we want. I agree there with Ralph, where he says that our teachers should be prepared not only to teach in Peru, you abroad. We are behind. We are still teaching our teachers as when they were taught in the 19th or 20th century. We have to update that. We definitely do. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say for the meantime.
Thank you so much. I agree with your ideas, Arturo, of that there are divisions at the schools between private versus public schools, and also that the ministry politics affect the result of the teaching learning process. And we should build a global profile for English teachers. I love your ideas, just like Ralph's and Julio's, and I promise that I will do an article and it will help us maybe to think about this and reflect just like we are doing now. Johnny?
Okay, Thank you very much. Yes, okay. First of all, yes, the question is very tough and includes, many areas, university, institutes, and also schools. I'd like to start my participation by establishing the setting, We are in Peru, and obviously Peru is a multi and pluricultural language, right? This country has got many languages spoken around us. Spanish is the first language. Yes, secondly comes Quechua. As you know, Quechua, mainly the variant of the southern dialect in Peru. And the third language is English, believe it or not, okay? Apart from that, we can say that there are 42 languages spoken in the Amazonian jungle, and some of them are in endangered situation. Another aspect that I would like to point out is the fact that English is considered a lingua franca. Remember, and we understand by lingua franca, English that is spoken by non-native speakers in the world. And this English is acquiring certain characteristics different from native speakers that is becoming less and less. All right, with this situation in mind, we either like to start with the school. I review the papers given by the Ministry of Education, I, for example, saw that this year the budget went up to 8%. And this percent is really the highest in the last 3 years, right? We hope that the authorities are going to execute or implement these expenses, because sometimes we receive money, but we don't spend the money, and the money is getting back to the state. This shouldn't happen, right? Okay, they are thinking to spend the money, return to face learning, for example. Another thing is invest in professional development. The other thing they say is that they are going to implement technical innovation because they need obviously to buy tablets and internet connections, etc. They will continue investing in superior education, right? Providing scholarships to university students and integral attention of vulnerable population and the decentralization of local and regional governments. Everything is okay. In the papers, I see the Ministry of Education is right, but what is happening, Because I went through different materials, and I found out, according to the British Council 1915, they say that the level of English is not really achieving its goal. They are basic level. So that worried me a lot, And I continue searching for more and more information. And obviously here there are two important theses. I would say three important theses, right? The research did by British Council in 2015, English in Peru, an examination of policy perceptions and influencing factors, right? So according to them, the students who are finishing secondary level should get A2 or B1 level, and they are not getting this level. Another researcher, Morales A. et al., 2018, in his thesis, English in Public Schools, located in the metropolitan Lima, is saying the same, all right? The second researcher, Jose Prospero Guaman from Catholic University, 2021, is also saying that the students are not achieving this level, yes? So we need to see, what is going on, not only in the papers, but maybe in the classroom. We need to have an overview of what is taking place in the classroom, okay? This leads me to the second topic I thought of, that was the methodology, right? If you review the papers given by the Ministry of Education, they are implementing communicative approaches, they suggest that the teachers should use all these communicative approaches, as well as they are using some other approaches such as intercultural approaches, right? Using the this European framework of reference for language teaching, which is great, and also computer-assisted language learning, okay? They are implementing different modalities, the blended learning, yes, for regular and complete working hours at secondary level, COAR, which is a special school also where only students who are selected, you know, go to study to these places, right? So here they are doing their best as a Ministry of Education, right? But remember, what do we need to do? Okay, right. Well, so we need, you know, to do many other things, you know, here. I found also some information that the Ministry of Education, for example, have different projects such as Doors to the World, yes, this sort of hybrid teaching in education, Aprendo en Casa, o Peru Educa. We also have Pronavec that is continue giving a scholarship to students and teachers, right? Something very important that caught my attention was the deficit of English teachers, right? And this information was provided by British Council 2015 and also by this lady, Talenta, a Peruvian researcher, in her thesis, The Gap of the Peruvian English Teacher and the Education of the 21st Century from Pura University. So they are telling us you are having deficit of teachers. So what the universities, institutes, and everyone that is involved in Peru need to do something about it. Sometimes, you know, the Ministry of Education wants to go from 2 to 5 hours. But if we are facing this problem or deficit of English teachers, we are not prepared in order to go to 5 hours per week, you know? All right. So this time I'd like to give my emphasis on university level, right? University. At university level, we have English is mandatory. That is the first thing I have to say, okay? All right. For example, university level students know that learning English is going to affect positively their future. They know that they will have access to updated bibliography, for example. They can have better employability. That is the second thing they have in mind. And the last one is improve their professional prospect. You know, English is mandatory in some careers, not in all the levels, right? So, and the number of hours varies from faculty to faculty. Let's consider 3 hours. If we have 3 hours, we're going to have 70 hours in a semester. And with 70 hours in a semester, we cannot have ambitious goals. Respecting to entry examination, the policy at universities are changing, you know. Why? Because we are considering English, you know, in the entry examination, right? Just the basic level and reading comprehension, right? But obviously, some other faculties are asking the students to have not only basic, but B1 level. So getting into the university is becoming more and more difficult, right? Okay, at the institutes, I can say that San Marcos University have got, you know, a program for licenciatura. So all the students who have finished, you know, the level, this level of at the institutes can go to San Marcos University to study 2 more years, you know, and obviously get the license at the end. Okay, so this analysis is telling me that we need to do drastic changes, right? You know, we need to think what is going on in the classrooms, you know, so we need to think of the salaries our teachers are getting. They are very poor salaries, so we cannot expect from them to invest in taking further studies, for example. There is lack of recognition of the work teachers do in the classroom. Yes, they are more hard work, but there is no recognition of these working hours in the schools, right? Then another aspect, and I agree with British Council 2015, is the difficult geographical distribution of the country. You know, it's very difficult to go to an Amazonian jungle, very far away from the city to get access with the bibliographies, right? So remember, I believe that it's necessary to consider education as a national project. Yes, it doesn't belong to the politicians. It should belong to the state. So when we have change of, politicians, they have to continue consolidating the next governments. Another aspect that I'd like to talk about is multicultural learning. Many languages are spoken in Peru, and obviously they make difficult the access of the bibliography written in all these languages. And the last topic that I'd like to point out is the training policy, right? We need, to orient this training to social practice and language learning for communication. They must be focused on instrumental use of the language. Teach English for communicating our ideas. Yes? Okay, thank you very much for letting me share my information. Okay.
No, thank you so much for a very complete view of what is going on at schools, institutes, and university. I don't know if the other people here knew about the increase of 8% in education. I don't know if the other people knew that students from your language center, after they finish their studies, they can go to the School of Education and study 2 more years and become teachers. That's great. I didn't know. I don't know if any of the guest speakers have something to say. Yeah, Julio.
Johnny, sorry, I thought SUNEDU had prohibited that, because before also Villarreal University used to offer that kind of opportunity for students who finished their studies in a language institute. Is it still currently working on there?
Johnny,
my micro? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, all right. So a very good question, right? We need to clarify this. Remember when we had seen that there was, we didn't have many teachers, this deficit of teachers that I found in the bibliography, the education faculty designed a project, okay? We call PROLEX, Programa of Foreign Languages, right? That was something specific, mainly for students who have gone to institute to study 3 years until they get the advanced level, right? So we thought, we have here deficit of English teachers. Why not exploiting these students, who finish their studies? So we considered some credits, for these 3 years of language learning studies. And obviously, as a university, we give them many other subjects they haven't taken at the institute. Okay. With this, in 3 years, they will be finishing, obviously, the license. The other program I talked about, this has been canceled, right? But not the program of license for language institutes, right? We continue having this program for teachers who have gone 3 or 4 years to study at the institutes. They don't have the license, so they study 2 more years after an examination, obviously, and with 2 more years, they can get the license in the nearest, area they studied at the institute. Okay.
So we need to talk, Julio, with Johnny about this.
Yeah, I'm really surprised, because lots of universities like drop out that opportunity, unless like teachers like me, for example, I studied engineering, then I want to have a bachelor's degree in education, so then I can go to university and deal with that. But SUNEDU is being very strict about that. Yes. That's why I was surprised to hear that. No?
But anyway, yeah. we need to.
Which is good. Definitely, it's a nice opportunity. Yes.
Yes, that's why. Okay, let's continue with the second question, please, and then we will give people in the audience the opportunity of talking. I'd like to thank people in Facebook Live who are making questions too, and they are giving us good ideas. Like, for example, Mariela Bermudez, she says that the international examinations are not considered as part of the evaluation by UGEL in their profile, that is necessary to increase the number of hours. They also ask about the students of SEBA, and there is no English teaching at the primary level in public schools in Peru, that it would be very helpful. Of course, in kindergarten, there should be too. Okay, the second question is, anybody to read it, please?
What are the main challenges of the teachers to become professionals in Peru?
Okay, so that is the second question. What are the main challenges of people to become professionals in Peru? So we are going to start.
Yeah, I think that question segues very, very kindly, very well from what Johnny said.
Yes. Yeah. So let's start with you, Ralph.
Okay. Yeah. I think that Johnny painted a very good picture, several of the aspects that I wanted to touch on. I think that one of the key points that Johnny mentioned is the limited attraction to the teaching career, period. Not it's a cross-cutting issue. I'm not talking about English language teaching, I'm talking about teaching career in general, right? So there's limited attraction to the teaching career. I think that there's a perception or a reputation for the career to be some sort of a short permanence. So I don't know if that's a term, short permanence career. Like it has a very short span, to develop yourself in the career. So I recently read an article that it's about 5 years. So you remain in the career 5 years, you study 5 years, you remain in the career for 5 years, and then you jump into something else because you don't see a future in it, right? That causes, of course, a really high turnover, of teachers in institutions, teachers that come and go and they segue to other careers, right? But of course, those who remain, I think that have a challenge in trying to track career expectations. So once they are in the teaching career, what's the expectation? So how am I going to progress in this career, right? What are the development opportunities? So there's no clarity about how they can build, a career in language teaching, alongside English teaching, or out of English teaching, like for example, in my case, I meant Julio, you mentioned that I've got 30 years in the career, but that 30 years, if you split it, in, let's say in 4, a quarter of it has been English language teaching. But then the second quarter was basically management, administration, academic support, and all that. The next part has been, working in English at policy level, with the British Council. And then now, for example, and then I'm again taking a detour into something else, which is operations, but with a regional remit. So besides the fact that there's limited opportunities, of course, there's not much visibility of that track that teachers can build. Teachers still believe that teacher is always a teacher, and that's not always the case, right? Maybe at the top of the mind is, becoming a coordinator, a trainer, and that's it. Right? So there isn't like a clear pathway. And of course, that's because there's no visibility and probably there aren't many opportunities for that, for those little opportunities. And then of course, there's always, around that, circulating around that, or maybe in the periphery of that, the beliefs and the influence of previous practices, right? That of course influence, all the track of policies we draw from in Peru and how that has shaped what we believe in terms of English language teaching or in terms of English language in general. So again, some of the key points that I would like to mention is the limited career offer, the alternative tracks that lack visibility. In general, what Johnny said, the deprioritization, not only of the policy, the deprioritization of the policy, but as a global issue, I mentioned this is not only Peru, but in many countries, the deprioritization of the teaching career in general. What I'm saying, what you're saying about the lack of attraction and all that cuts across different countries, the States, the UK and all that. Not many people want to be teachers. Not many parents, motivate their children to be teachers. I mean, you're not gonna go and say, yes, I wanted to be a teacher. Teaching is a great career. You don't go around saying that, right? Probably the most common comment is, please, whatever you choose as a career, don't be a teacher. It's very common, right? And finally, one point that probably we can go back to later is the local remit of the offer. That offer that Julio was mentioning, that Johnny was talking about from Universidad San Marcos, has probably a local remit. Students in those programs are taking on those programs. They're becoming professionals, but there isn't the offer does not fall into the internationalization priorities of universities, right? When universities talk about internationalizing education, they think about their mainstream areas, but not necessarily education, precisely because they know that there is little attraction to the career. There are not that many students there. So why invest in having an international, curriculum at the university for English language teaching if I'm not going to have, the return of my investment very, in a reasonable time. So it's very complex to look at English language teaching from a global perspective, having international, an international outlook of the profession, when locally it's not in universities' plans to have an international attraction program. Like, for example, have a curriculum that attracts students from other countries to study in Peru, to study education in Peru, or students who study in Peru with international standards, for example. So it's a very complex issue.
Yeah, right? Yeah, it is. Are you done, Ralph?
Yeah, I was sorry. sorry.
I agree with you. Sorry. Yeah, very important what you have mentioned, the career offer, the policies, and the track. Yes, I just remember that before the pandemic, we used to have students from Argentina and from Spain in our School of Education, and also from Cuba. And I wonder what moved these students to come to study not only to Peru, but also to Piura. So good. I will ask. Arturo.
One thing I'd like to add from what Johnny was saying, and from what other colleagues have been saying about, the challenges in English language teaching. And for example, Johnny made a lot of emphasis in the geographical spread that we have, right? How difficult it is to access teachers in the jungle, for example. You have to travel miles and miles, on a canoe, to reach them, et cetera, et cetera. And precisely because of this global, teaching perspective, you can have now more access to other countries. I mean, that same challenge is shared by other countries. Peru is not the only country in the world that faces these challenges. right? But quite recently, for example, at the British Council, we facilitated an encounter between the Ministry of Education English language team with the country director in Cuba. And she was telling them, Minerva was telling them about the challenges they face in Cuba precisely on connectivity, you know, the situation in Cuba, connectivity, restrictions, blah, 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 and how they manage those issues. So, I mean, managers really have to be very creative to access or to provide access to continuous professional development, to training, etc., with alternative means. In Peru, for example, most teachers use WhatsApp. In Cuba, they use Telegram, you know, and things like this. And it's interesting how they, in Cuba, for example, they deliver education through those alternative means, you know, mixing, for example, asynchronous activities with some synchronous activities, very little synchronous activity. But, you know, they use recordings, they use, as I said, Telegram, they deliver through PDFs, etc. And then they connect with teachers through messages, audio messages, etc., because of the restrictions that they have. So it's really something to look at as a case study, right? But that's the kind of opportunity that being in a global organization gives you, right? I'd like to stop there just because of the sake of time. So,
all right.
Yeah,
and thanks to these international meetings, we will also learn something that you have just mentioned, right? We will have teachers from Bolivia, Ecuador, Argentina, Colombia, Mexico, Guatemala, Costa Rica, and we will learn what's going on there, and we will be able to compare. Thank you so much, Ralph. Arturo Phil, please, you are the next one.
Yes, no, I'm going to try to make it short here. A lot has been said by Ralph and Johnny, and I have identified three main barriers. One is the difficult working conditions that teachers go through. I think that's one of the limiting factors. Another one is the systemic challenges that teachers have to go through constantly. And another one is the poorly designed professional development, as Ralph says. There is no clear goal as to where us teachers should go. So what is the main goal? What is the final goal, if there is one? Because we always keep on learning, no? So we never stop learning. And another little thing that I would like to comment about what Johnny said. Johnny, the problem is sometimes not maybe money that the government allocates for different sectors. The problem is and it's sad to say it, is the poor management that goes with this money. That's the problem. We can have 10%, 20%, 30, whatever, but if the people in charge don't know how to manage it, we call it una buena gestión, we are lost. And another thing that I have always asked myself, and I don't have the answer yet, maybe one of you, maybe Johnny, or I have seen, I think Carmen here could answer this, is it's something very interesting. The Ministry of Education receives money, right? Part of their budget. And they are in charge of investing in the building of schools. And I asked myself, we are teachers. We're not engineers or architects. Why should the Ministry of Education be in charge of building the schools and other institutions in our country that, sad to say it, keep on falling apart after 2 or 3 years?
That's a good point, Arturo.
That's crazy. And I don't know why this happens. Maybe we have talked about this with Julio and other people, and I say, hey, pero, okay, I don't know. That's a question I don't have an answer yet. No. And maybe that happens not only in Peru, happens in other countries. I hope it does, no, in the good sense, no? Because if it's only Peru, it's something that we have to change immediately, no? Find someone who builds these schools according to the needs of the sector. I agree. We are the professionals. We know what we need, but we shouldn't be in charge of building them. That's something that I really don't understand until now, and I don't have an answer yet. Maybe someday someone will give me an answer why that happens, but no. And yeah, basically that, and we should see ourselves as teachers for an international, how can we say this? Are we ready to teach abroad, Ralph? Now, I'm teaching at the moment in Chile. I'm teaching at the moment in Spain. And you say, how? Are you traveling? No. By internet, by Zoom. Can I do it? Yes, maybe because I have the experience. I've been teaching many years and I know how to adapt materials and things. But are we ready to do that? Do our teachers have the level to do that? Are they ready? That's what I think we have to think about. No? And that's what I wanted to say. Johnny gave a very clear picture of what's going on. And I think that commenting a little bit more on that is
Julio and I want to say something. Maybe the answer for that is because what we have seen during these all past governments is because the ministry that has the money, you know what it means. If they allow other institutions to build the schools, they will lose the money. So I guess that would be an answer. Julio?
Yeah, again, going back to my role of a bad cop here. One thing that, well, Ralph and everybody, well, Ralph mentioned it, but everybody knows that teaching, when you go into the world of teaching, is not like to become a great businessman, no? Few of us have made the way through, that's true, but most teachers, they work, there was one quotation from Don Bosco, no? It says, education is a matter of the heart.
Yes.
So
Definitely.
education, if you want to be an educator, it usually comes from your heart. I think the best winning thing that you can get is the appreciation of your students, that your students have, they manage what they have to, the objectives that you have set for them. Yes, I think that's the best gaining from this thing. I mean, if we talk about money, yes, it's true, Ralph. I think I also read that research talking about the duration of the. I'm in the teaching world for 5 years and that's it. Enough. I don't want to have it more. No? But one of the challenges for me is, again, to raise the level, the command of language. I think the best weapon for a teacher is our command of language. And that's something that we need to work on. As Arturo said, yes, I want to teach to teach people in Spain or France or whatever, but sometimes our command of language says, oh, no, I'm sorry, Julio, I need a different kind of teacher. No? And also, in terms of methodology, I think Peruvian teachers are well equipped.
Yes.
Definitely. No? At state, public schools, and at private schools. But then the command of language, having a good command of language gives you confidence, and that confidence transpires good teaching somehow. I don't know why, but that's what I've experienced. You know? So I think that's one of the main challenges here. Are we working towards that? Definitely we are, yes. But I think that the biggest challenge is the change that each teacher in Peru should have within. The change and the challenge should come from within each of us. You know? Just to give you an idea, once I offered a FCE prep course for teachers, free for teachers of a school, free. Only 2 register. No time, money, they couldn't say no money because it was free. Yes, but I have other things. Question mark here. No, something that we can do as teachers or experienced teachers. So it says, hey, something like this. Let's offer free courses for example, public school teachers or private school teachers, because sometimes we think that private schools, they have teachers with better level of English, and that's not true either. Either. Okay, that's for Johnny and for Ralph. No, either or either, so they don't get angry about my pronunciation there. But another challenge is methodology has changed.
Yes.
Yes. The use of technology has changed. No? Mindsets have changed. Have we changed? Do we do that kind of reflection? And that's another point. No, pint. I am thinking about beer. Another point.
Yes.
So,
Julio.
have we changed? Are we changing? Now, when COVID arrived and the use of technology just was put in front of us, we just taught the way we taught in class, in a face-to-face. And that's why the first months were chaotic. You know, it was chaos because we were not prepared. Now we are better prepared. And still, we continue teaching the way we used to teach in a face-to-face class.
Yes. Fully agree with you, Julio.
Yeah.
Fully agree with you.
What should we do? Promote that change. How should we do it? Through these kind of gatherings, or through the universities. Another challenge is to create, more programs of specialization in teaching English. Yeah. Yes, I think Johnny said something about primary teachers. Why not giving, primary with a second specialization in English?
Kindergarten teachers too.
Kindergarten teachers. And I think how many universities, Ralph, maybe you have that number in your mind. How many universities in Peru offer the program of English?
Very few, very few, really. Yes, and if they do, I think they all suffer from the same issue, which is attraction of students. They offer the program; it's in the program, but there's very little attraction to it. Yeah. They never get to implement the program because they don't have students, right? And
that's true.
Yeah, there was something else you mentioned, Julio, which is I just forgot. You know, I was talking about the attraction thing, but you mentioned something at the end of one of the last thoughts you were talking about. Can you repeat yourself on that? You were saying you were talking about the number of students that is difficult to attract, and you were saying something about private schools or something like that.
Private school teachers.
Yeah, I think that on that, for instance, I think that those schools that those private schools that say that hire teachers, most of them invest. The cross-cutting thing is there's very little investment from the private sector as well in continuous professional development. If there is any continuous professional development, it's a investment from the private sector, it's for their own teachers, for their particular purposes, and for their particular objectives. So for example, schools that deliver the British curriculum train their teachers in delivering the British curriculum.
Yeah,
that's correct.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yeah.
At the most, if they do, really, because everybody across the board, you know, public, private, etc., they all the management of these schools, they always look for free opportunities because there's no money in it, you know. Yeah. And that comes even from the Ministry of Education. One thing you were mentioning, that Arturo was mentioning, is why should the Ministry of Education be building schools? But yeah, I mean, that's a reality. You know, that 8% of the budget that Johnny mentioned, how much of that is invested in infrastructure? My best guess is most of it. Most of the budget in the Ministry of Education goes into infrastructure because we know that there's a big gap. So how does that budget trickle down to the English language team? Nothing. Really. I mean, there is no money for English language teacher development.
Right.
You know? And that's why the English language team at the ministry, they always have to look for partners to deliver content to their teachers.
That's right.
That's true. Yeah. But to me, that was one of the biggest challenges, no? To to change, but from within. No?
Mhm.
Because as we mentioned it, the why the money, why we cannot change that, because we cannot fight the Minister of Education. Yes, we could if we were just a kind of united group. No, nowadays in Peru there are different teachers associations which they are doing a great job. But if we manage to get them together, no, that would be kind of the first step to go and talk to the ministry, the people in the Ministry of Education, and try to promote some change.
Yes, I
But
fully
if we
agree,
just
Julio.
go, we just have some island around Peru,
Mhm,
no?
mhm.
No, in Tacna, in Piura, in Lima, there are 2 or 3, in Puno, no?
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
okay.
true.
So
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
what I have to say.
Thank you, Julio. And before we go to Johnny, the only lady in this group, thank you for that. I would like to say something that, Julio, when you said that the command of language, number 1, and number 2, that you were offering a free FCE preparation course, that's not new. I remember David Fay, when he was in charge of Rilo, he always said to me, because he traveled Peru, all over Peru, and he said, Jaime, the problem in Peru is the command of language for English teachers. That is the first problem. They cannot learn, they cannot change, they cannot do anything new if they don't improve their command of language. And number 2 is when we offer programs for free, teachers say, but my salary is going to be the same. So why should I take this or that course if my salary will be the same or I won't get any certificate? That is another issue. If I gave certificates for these international meetings, I would have hundreds, thousands of teachers listening and participating in these international meetings. Julio.
Jaime, your second question is, what are the principal challenges of the teachers to become professionals?
That's what I meant. That's what I meant.
If you base your, not you, but if somebody bases his or her professionalism on the amount of money,
yeah,
hey,
you're wrong,
twice.
right?
You're in the wrong career, wrong career.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have to work in the Cámara de Comercio de Lima, then you will.
No, I just wanted to say one little thing, Jaime. Only a second. Only a second. If I have learned something in the Lima Chamber of Commerce, I'm just a member. I don't work for them. I'm just a member. Is that we need to learn from other professions. We are not an island. It's like what lawyers do. They always say, lawyers in Spanish decimos, somos un mar de conocimientos, pero de un centímetro de profundidad, which may be translated into English. We are, I don't know, an ocean of knowledge, but with 1 centimeter depth. Okay? Why? Because we have to read about everything. We have to know about everything. We have to know what's going on in the world, not only about teaching, because that teaching is a very limited focus. We have to open our minds. And that is something that I have learned in the Chamber of Commerce, in which I'm trying to apply in order to maybe help this great sector in education, which and we have to learn from others. They are the experts. So you have engineers, we have lawyers in the teaching field, we have architects, we have, I don't know, mathematicians, whatever, and we're trying to help. We're trying to I don't know, offer the best we know, no? That's what I wanted to say. Yes.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry for my comment on the Cámara de Comercio.
Okay, it's okay, Jaime. No worry. Don't worry.
I
Don't
know,
worry.
come on, Arturo.
No. I have learned a lot there. I have learned a lot in the
I know, that's why you are here, my dear Arturo. Thank you.
Yeah, they don't pay me, Jaime. Julio, they don't pay me, Julio.
No,
they don't
Arturo
pay me.
will pay me, Julio. Okay, Johnny. After Johnny, we will give the chance of people who are listening to us of participating. Johnny.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to comment briefly about the things my friends were talking. Yes, the command of the language. I agree totally with Ralph, with Arthur, with Julio also. I think we need to put this requirement in the curriculum of English specialty. Yes, because I went through the different universities, I searched what they have, and none of them have that requirement. Yes, so by now I have a clear idea about it. So if we don't have this requirement of being an advanced teacher, what can we do? Anything. So we are here trying to do some sort of improvement courses. This was 10 years ago when we worked with the Ministry of Education. We had improvement, language courses improvement, I remember. They pay to go to the Language Institute to catch up with the advanced level. Yes, I remember all these things. And now we are after 15 years and we continue with the same problems. So what will be the solution to this? To consider in the curriculum of the students who are going to major in English, Spanish, this requirement. And I think we can sort out the problem, right? But remember, we need to help them because, you know, to get the certificate, the international certification is very expensive. My students don't get this, but after they get the license and they start working, most of them get this certification, right? If the university have this specialty, they must pay for this or establish a sort of convenio with this international institution that administer this examination with lower prices. All right. Then the other topic you mentioned, and I agree totally with my friends here, is to narrow the gap between state schools and private schools. We need to work a lot in that direction. I don't know where we started dividing this state and private sector, right? We don't know. Peru is just one country, so we need to work all of them in just one direction, not in two directions. This is causing terrible problems to our students because the students are not communicating with each other. They are talking different languages, even being in Peru. Okay, and then we also here narrowing, etc. I'm going to concentrate on my topic, yes? And the topic was, what are the principal challenges of teachers to become professionals in your country? I'm going to divide this into two areas. Challenges in undergraduate studies, all right? As you know, in the undergraduate studies, we need to look for education of quality, all right? And for this, you know, we need to have bibliography, and the students cannot afford to buy books. So the university need to buy these updated books so the students can start reading and become obviously good professionals in the future, right? The second thing I was thinking of is that the students do not have economy. The state is the one who needs to help them. Obviously, education here is something we need to work a lot on, right? Because sometimes we give them some sort of economic aid and they never get back to the state, you know? So again, education here, they can receive, in all the countries, they receive loans. And if you are an orphan, there is no problem because the university and the state pay for you. And after you graduate, you give back all the money until you pay the less coin, the less cent, right? The total cent, okay? So, but right now, putting our feet on earth, you know, accessibility to internet is something that every single student should have. Without this, I don't know what we are talking about. I don't know who is going to help. Well, the state is giving 80%, and this is great, okay. But one thing is to give, I said at the beginning. Another one is to execute and start spending the money. Yes, that is another issue, and it goes along with lack of preparation in designing projects, all right? So we are agreeing on everything, right? Then the next thing that I was thinking of for my students is, if they don't have, if they do not count with computers, how can they have, you know, classes? They cannot have classes. So the university need to apply a survey in order to find out who have or who doesn't have computers at home, so they can start, buying or helping them with some amount of money to buy the computers, right? Okay, the other thing that I was thinking of is the lack of teacher identity. And all of you, my dear friends, talk about it. What happened in education? In education go the people who didn't get into medicine, into law school, etc. So here, what we miss is this lack of professionalism. And we need to work a lot on that. We need to make our career attractive. And how can we do this? Obviously, talking to the Ministry of Education, knocking doors to the private institutions, etc. The second point that I was thinking of is challenges when teachers start to work. That is very, very difficult for someone who start or initiate working under this situation, right? Number one, difficult working conditions, all right? And the first thing I'm going to say is lack of irregular, delayed, and low remunerations, all right? So without money, what can you do? Anything. Yes, obviously, sometimes we talk about professionalism, sometimes we talk about this sort of courses that the institution should give, but sometimes we cannot afford to pay for those courses because they are expensive. Another topic is the overcrowded classrooms. 35, 40 students. How do you expect the students or the teachers to get, results when you have this massive amount of students in the classroom? And the authorities don't say anything about it. They don't split maybe the class into two groups that could be manageable, but they simply don't do it. Yes. So with all this situation, it's impossible to get, obviously, the goals proposed by Minedu. The next one is lack of effective communication in our teachers. If they do not have the ability to express ideas, obviously they cannot use communicative approaches, neither other strategies, right? So all these difficult working conditions affect negatively a good teacher, yes? And obviously as a result, is going to affect the teaching performance. Okay, so thank you very much for my participation. Okay.
Oh, thank you, dear Johnny, for very complete information and very complete view of what's going on. So now we will give the chance of people who are listening to us to express his or her opinion briefly, please, about the first two questions. The first two questions were, how would you describe the reality of the teaching learning process in Peru? And the second one, what are the principal challenges of the teachers to become professionals? Anybody who wants to say briefly something, please, just raise your hand. Thank you, Tanya. Briefly, please.
Okay, first I'd like to congratulate here people that have organized this roundtable. First, I would like to start with some challenges that teachers face, perhaps some courses, because perhaps we are interested in taking some training courses about methodology, but what I have seen is that we can take these courses, but it's related about theory. So we cannot put into practice. And I always listen to speeches where they can say, teachers give ideas how to do something like, okay, now you can use this game, but then we try to forget that, or well, at least sometimes I forget and we don't put that into practice. And that is something that we should change. And also the idea how we think, okay, what am I studying this? Why do I have to study this course if I'm not going to increase my salary, as you have said? I mean, why do I have to do this? Because sometimes we expect something in return to get, and we should not be like that. And I think that we should improve that. And I'm here, I'm very happy for being here and listening to your ideas, because in that way I'll learn. And if you want to do something else, I am here, so perhaps I can share what I have learned. As you see, I'm very young, but I am interested in education, and I'm studying yet education because I started to work as a teacher, and then I really liked how to do this, and then no, that is my passion. I like to make a change in the system of education here in Peru. So I'm here, and perhaps if you want to do something else, you can call me perhaps, but thanks a lot.
No, thank you, dear Tanya, because this is not the first time you are in our international meetings, and thank you because you represent a big group of young teachers. We were also young, but now we are a little bit younger, so don't worry, and thank you so much. Anybody else, please, who wants to say something before we go on with the third question? Briefly, please. Anyone? Yes.
Muy buenos días to each one of you. I mean, yes, it was very interesting to listen to all your viewpoints. Something that, I mean, as I listened to you, I was transported back to 1982 when I began teaching in Peru. Same thing. The teaching of English is very complex. It's multi-layered. Sadly, we don't have I don't see, for example, anybody from the Ministry of Education who does the policies. The policies come and go. And that doesn't help us. I was listening to all of you talking about the proficiency level. Sadly, I completely disagree with all of you because back in 1982, our proficiency level was, I would say, lower than it is. In all these years, nearly 40 years, wherever I go to Peru, whenever I do a session, I'm glad to see that that has improved. Maybe it hasn't improved to the level of, and it depends where you are to work. I believe it was Ralph and Arturo talking about the concept of management. Since I also prepare teachers over here and I do both in English and Spanish, I have had students who have an excellent command of the language, let's say in Spanish, and they go and teach, and they cannot manage the classroom, for example. So I don't think we need to, we should always equate that language proficiency equates to good teaching. It really depends. If you work in a public school or state school, that's not always the case. And I can tell you by experience, because as all of you know, or some of you know, I have always worked in the public sector. I have made an effort to commit to be a good teacher of English, but I failed as a teacher. Why did I fail as a teacher? Because I didn't have the management of the classroom. I didn't have what Tanya has just mentioned, the concepts, the theories, because everything that I was taught or prepared is like in silos. It's this math here, it's this there, as opposed to, oh, wait a minute, what Arturo said, that we should be connecting with the other profession, that we should be making it more multidisciplinary. So that was the only thing I want to say, because I see teachers, public school teachers, teachers from other institutions. I think we have improved, probably not to the level that we would like to, but I think that's something that we need to recognize, especially if I see it in a timeline.
Thank you so much, dear Carmen. Number one, I haven't invited any authority from DREP, UGELS, or the ministry, because these international meetings are organized by Jaime and Kahima Lama. It's not any university, any faculty, any school, or any institute. So we are here, friends, passionate professionals who want to help ourselves and others to reflect and act. That's all we want, okay? And about the command of language, I personally mentioned what David Fay said. When he was the Rilo president, he said, because he traveled all over Peru, that the command of language is the problem number one for English teachers. I didn't say public or private. I said the command of language. And it's not the point to see who is right or who is wrong or who disagrees or who agrees. The point is reflect and help ourselves and help other people. That's the point, okay? Now let's continue, sorry, we have to continue with the question number 3. And the question number 3, my dear Tanya and Chante, I am sure that in 20 or 30 years you will be doing, or maybe before, you will be helping other teachers to reflect. Question
Yes.
number 3, Tanya.
Okay. Number 3, why are the English Teachers Associations being in existence in Peru, and how productive are they?
Okay, thank you so much, dear. So, Johnny, what English Teachers Association we have here in Peru? Choose one of them so everybody can talk about the other ones. And what is your point of view?
Yes. All right. Okay. Thank you, Jaime. So I'm going to talk about API only, right? Okay. Long time ago, we had API associations, right? And API stands for Associations of Peruvian Teachers of English.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember.
Here, yes, maybe you remember, yes. We used to run international seminars, yes, always with the help of British Council and Rilo Andes, who usually provide us with keynote speakers. This is something we need to recognize, right? API Association received an important donation, from an executive from British Council. If I don't remember very well, it was Miss Weisman, the person who gave a donation of books, videos, computers, and many other important things, So we used to have here an office in San Borja, where the teachers used to go to read books, during the weekdays. And also we had a secretary who used to give attention to the teachers. Yes. Another activity we used to do was to train state teachers, right? So we used to go to different schools, state schools, to give, obviously, training for free, yes? When we used to go to the Andes or maybe to the Amazonian jungle, British Council was the one who paid, obviously, for the flights and the fee, right? So, but we didn't receive any money for that. Okay, we need to clarify this, right? So after our period in API association ended, obviously, we elected another board, right? So we continue with the same policy of running annual international conferences, always being held by British Council and Rilo Andes. After many years, they closed the offices because I believe they couldn't afford to pay for the secretary as well as for the office. And after many years, obviously, Mrs. Leo opened and registered IATEFL Peru, and we continue running international seminars with them. Okay, as you know, having associations is very important, but we depend on the membership. If the teachers don't pay for the membership, obviously, we are going to collapse. So it's a matter of reformulating, our conditions as API has disappeared already. We have IATEFL, and obviously IATEFL is another important institution in order, obviously, to organize this kind of events annually. Yes, maybe my other colleagues are going to talk about IATEFL in much more detail, right? So this will be the history of API Association. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you very much.
No, thank you, dear Johnny, for reminding us about API. Thank you. And next, Julio.
I also work with API very closely. So I know, I mean, what Johnny has mentioned, I can back up all what she has mentioned. And I think what I got from working with API was like, they were really concerned about the teachers itself, and but at that time, the truth was there were also less teachers than now, and it was easier to have access in that sense. Though we could have expanded API work in provinces, because it was difficult. Sometimes we went to provinces, or some API members went to provinces. That was something that maybe was lacking, but API really did some great job there. The same as I don't want to talk about, no, it's not, I don't want to, but it's that I don't know what else I can say about TESOL in Peru. I know they work harder. Yes, they had because they work together with the Relo office or the Embassy of USA, and also with the Culturales, no, IPNAS in Peru. And that also helped, in a sense, to have a wider scope of work in Peru. Yes. But I still think that we need to work harder through associations. There are many associations nowadays, but I think we need to unite. No, if we don't unite, we don't get together, that would be more difficult to try at least to get us be heard by the Ministry of Education. And that's one of the challenges here. Yes, and just a parenthesis here. I don't want you to look at me as picon. No, Carmen Cáceres. I know Carmen. I work with her at Británico. But Carmen, I still think, and I also disagree with you, I still think that the command of language of a teacher is very important. I'm not saying that, and I didn't say it's the only thing. I want to make that clear. Yes, but I think, again, that is the best weapon that we have. And I think you've given the great example, Carmen, because look at the confidence with which you spoke. Your command of language is great. And you show confidence, and you show, this is me. And that's what we should show when we are teaching to our students. That's what I meant. Obviously, I've also been observing teachers in public schools, and they are great teachers, despite their lack of command of language. So there has to be a balance. And yet, to me, the best weapon is our command of language, because that's what we do. It doesn't matter that the ebook or the textbook you're using. It doesn't matter even if you have great methodology or great classroom management. If your command of language is not that at the correct level, then we may have problems. Okay, thank you very much.
No, thank you, dear Julio. Now back to you, Arturo.
Okay, I agree with Julio in one main thing. We should never forget that we are the model for the students. And if our English is not, I can't say perfect because nobody's perfect, okay? But if our English is not good, I wouldn't even try to stand up in front of a classroom.
Yes.
It's you know what, I haven't seen a French teacher or a German teacher trying to teach French or German if they don't speak it correctly.
Right.
Or at least they can keep up with a conversation. A minimum of confidence while speaking to others in this language. No, I agree with Carmen too, who I really know, I've known for many years, that that's not all. I agree. I think that the methodology and all the other things, as Julio says, are very important too. But you can be a great teacher, but if your English is terrible, you know what? Look for something else. That's not the way to go. That's not the way. I haven't met a lawyer or an engineer. Imagine an engineer who's not an expert building, I don't know, a house, and then the house falls down. He said, I am an expert. I have all the accreditation. I have all the certificates. I have everything. I don't know. I graduated as an engineer, but oops, se desplomó, se cayó. Remember that, right? It's impossible. Or architects, imagine. It doesn't mean that it's all. I agree with Julio, and I agree with Carmen at the same time. Okay, saying that, or having said that, in reference to API disappeared, as most of you know, and well, the ones who are from other countries don't know this, but it existed for many years. We did a lot of things with Julio, with Carmen, with Yoni. Many people participated. We gave our time for free. Jaime also helped us. Jaime was part of TESOL, I remember, where I met him. Okay, and we also,
I learned a lot, but
right,
a lot.
That's right.
TESOL. Yes.
And I have to admit one thing, Jaime. For me, TESOL was an inspiration, especially seeing what Liliana Nunez used to do. It was an inspiration to what we did after with API. We put together many things in API, and we did some things that were maybe a little bit better than what TESOL did because we wanted to be different. That's all. In the case of IATEFL, I think that it started well, but the pandemic affected everybody. And I haven't heard from IATEFL in a long time. IATEFL Peru, I mean. I know they're still trying to do things, but I think they haven't been able to put together many things. I know, as Julio mentioned, that there are a lot of Facebook groups that are doing an excellent job. One in Piura, I think, one in Puno. They're working really hard, and they are now becoming little by little associations. So they're registering as associations, not only Facebook groups anymore, which is great, And the work you do, Jaime, I shouldn't say this because you're here, but it's great. I think this is what we need. We need to share ideas with other countries. We need to learn from other countries.
Yes.
And one of my pending dreams is yet, and as I told you in the last time we were together, is we have to create, I call it a coalición. We have to get all the associations in Peru together. We are not inventing anything. They did it in Argentina. Hay una federación de asociaciones en Argentina. They had so many associations in Argentina that they had to create a federación. But federación is the old term. Now we should call it maybe coalición or something completely different. Federación doesn't sound good.
Johnny will help us with the term.
I know, yeah, Johnny can help us. And we need the help of everybody. Peruvians and foreigners, the British Council, who has helped us a lot, the American Embassy, the Canadian Embassy, Australian Embassy. We need the help of everybody. It's not one country's help, it's everybody. We need the help of everybody. And we as teachers need to do our part too. That's what I had to say. And yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point, because now I'm thinking about inviting presidents of the different associations we have here in Peru, like yours, Arturo, that you haven't said anything. If you could say something briefly about the association that you direct.
The Sociedad de Profesores de Inglés started as an idea at the time of Frank Fitzpatrick from the British Council. And we had the idea of, we already had an association in Lima, which was at that time TESOL or API. And we decided to open it in Arequipa to help the southern part of Peru, Arequipa, Cusco, Tacna, Moquegua, and Puno. We did a lot of things there. We were able to donate some, how do you say this, libraries that we gave them for free over there in Arequipa, in different Cusco and Tacna. But the thing is that, as Johnny said too, is after we don't have this economical support, we haven't been able yet to put together an institution that can self-pay their bills. So that's a pending issue. We have to be able to do that. So we have to find a way in which we don't have to depend from donations or money from other sources.
Yeah,
I think that's the secret, because money finishes. Yeah, Ralph knows that, because they have a budget and they can only give you certain, maybe sometimes not even money. It's speakers or others. No.
Yeah.
But I think that's what we need, Jaime. The sociedad is still there. Maybe I have to apologize. The pandemic hit us really hard. We haven't been able to put together events yet. We have been trying to do things, but it's not easy. I have to admit it too. Yes.
Yeah, but we need to do it, because teachers deserve and need to be face-to-face, talking, meeting. As another thing that David Fay said, he said, every time you go to a conference, seminar, whatever place you go, meet new people. Interchange opinion with other people, not with the same people. Oh, hello, Julio, and you only talk to Julio. Oh, hello. No. Go and meet young people, young teachers, new teachers, people from other regions, and then you will understand what's going on in their regions and places. Okay, to finish with this, yeah, Arturo.
Fresh ideas, new ideas that come from young people like Tanya.
Yeah, just like Tanya, fresh ideas. Thank you so much for being here, Tanya. And finally, Ralph, our good friend Ralph. Are you there? Ralph?
I think he had a little. There he is. You're
okay.
mute.
Yeah,
there
no,
you are.
I was just
eating. You were eating.
No. I was unmuting myself here because I've been paying attention to what colleagues said about this. I think it's very important. And I mean, the teacher associations are a whole different world. I think we could have a specific session, as you said, Jaime, on teacher associations. And Johnny might recall, for example, the British Council effort to bring together all the associations in the region. And Peru was this very, very special case because there wasn't like a clear identification of associations. There were many, associations or groups scattered here and there. And what Arturo said about these emerging groups, these emerging, what I call communities of practice that might end up being associations, who knows, are just a recent phenomenon. But it's a very complex thing. It's a very complex issue. I mean, if you look at IATEFL, and I'm talking about IATEFL because I have the British model here that's top of my mind. There's a whole structure around IATEFL, right, which goes beyond what happens in Peru, which is that they focus on either one event a year, which is a convention, organizing a convention a year, or in most cases, let's say, active associations or groups is to run a series of continuous professional development events throughout the year. Because it's very hard to do that. You need commitment. You need, people that really work in it and that are paid for that. They are
a budget.
They receive some sort of, a payment for the work, because it's not a something that I do in my free time. It's a full-time job to run an association, to run a group, if you do it properly. If you manage, for example, the structure of the association, if you manage, for example, fundraising, you need people to focus on fundraising, you need people to organize events, you need suppliers to run those events, and as I said, we'd speak for hours about that. But I think that there are very successful cases. I think some of my colleagues mentioned models in other countries where teacher associations reach a status of being really influential at government level, at ministry level. They pretty much function such as unions in Peru, It would be like the union of the English language teachers, right? And in doing so, of course, they have an impact on policy making. They have an impact at ministry level. We haven't reached that level yet here in Peru, right? But in general, I can say that what we have mapped out, at the British Council in terms of teacher associations is that I think that the most important focus is to promote continuous professional development. That's one. In those countries that, of course, are more advanced, I think that teacher associations are a voice for the teachers in front of for the government, for the Ministry of Education. That's why I said, in many countries, they act almost as unions, and many of them influence policy making, policy change. They are very powerful in that sense. As I said, we haven't reached that stage yet. Another aspect is professional standards. I think that that should be a focus, together with professional development, is also professional teaching standards, promoting those standards. In Peru, the Ministry of Education has its own teaching standards, yes, but at international level, there are, of course, other standards that should be observed if teachers want to become international, right? They support quality standards. For example, in many countries, teacher associations have a role in supervising schools.
Oh,
for
that's
example. Good. Yeah. That's not the case in Peru, of course, because of our structure. And of course, by doing continuous professional development, as for example you're doing, and bringing together people from different countries, you're promoting, you know, international opportunities, and you're showcasing the work of different countries in one single space, like the one you're promoting, right? And basically, you know, as like, you know, the main thing that all these groups do is bring professionals together, you know, you have all said, you know, bringing professionals together in spaces like this where we can discuss and reflect and all that. That's one thing I wanted to mention about teacher associations from my perspective.
Thank you so much, dear Ralph, sorry. And now we are going to the last question, number 4. And then people here in the audience, I want to thank everyone who is here and also in Facebook Live for their comments and participation. Then they will have the chance of speaking and giving their point of view again. And the last question is Julio, number 4.
Wait a minute. Okay. Where can you become a licenciado en lengua inglesa in Peru? What are the requirements to graduate?
Very good. So everyone, anybody who wants to speak about this question, where can we study to become licenciado en lengua inglesa?
Well, I can say that at Universidad de Piura,
okay, explain.
Where we work, we have a program, licenciatura. Yes, it's a 5-year program. And we used to have one, was done by distance learning, yes, but unfortunately, because of SUNEDO rules and regulations, we had to close it down. But I think, and now I'm going to be on the positive side, Ralph, I'm going to be on your side. This year has been a nice year for this program because we've had 21 new students, no? Freshmen, which is for any school of education with a specialization of English is a very interesting number.
Yes.
And I think what the university is doing is also working with Beca 18, and they try to convince students to go to the School of Education. And that's one way of strengthening this area. To work with Beca 18, no? So the language schools, the education schools from different universities, maybe they can also do that, and we can start building up the number of teachers that is required, because I think Johnny and Ralph and Arturo, you've mentioned that we have lack of teachers, no? And the main source for teachers comes from the language institutes, which in turn, yeah, they may have a good command of language, but they lack a teaching methodology. And again, I would like to add that when you are a professional of the language teaching, it's not only the language and the methodology, but it's also how you form people, no? How you form young minds. No? You're working with young minds, and you're working for years. So that's all that, I mean, I think we forgot to say that. Johnny perhaps mentioned something, but yes, command of language, teaching skills, but also the skills that any educator needs in order to form new minds, no? And it's something that we need to work on too.
Yeah.
That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, Julio. Johnny?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm going to talk about my university. I reviewed, all the universities that have English specialty. All right, so I'm going to start with San Marcos University. Here we have the specialty of English and Spanish. Yes, both languages. And students study 10 semesters. That makes them in 5 years, right? They need to have 220 credits to get the license. According to the newest regulation by SUNEDO, they have to defend a license, or getting the bachelor, the license, they have to defend a thesis, all right? Okay, what are the graduate profile of these students? For example, They have to be able to produce new knowledge through scientific work, yes, contributing to the development of money and society. The other aspect of the graduate profile will be having critical attitudes, proposing alternative solutions, right? And have communicative competence of the language. This point is found in all the universities, yes, but it should be, they have to have certification of international, they should have international certification, things like that, you know, and they have to have ICT management abilities also, okay? Another university that I found out was Pedro Ruiz Gallo. They also have a specialty of English, but it is in the post-degree unit, yes? So they have to have 192 credits in order to get the title of Didactics of English as a foreign language. National University of Education also have a specialty of English, not only English, English, French, English, Italian, English, German, English, English and Spanish as a foreign language, right? They have to have 220 credits to graduate as a license, right? And obviously defend a thesis, because now all the universities have this regulation given by SUNEDO. Yes, what are their graduate profile, for example? Committed to long life learning, develops projects for change and innovation in educational processes with international quality standards, conduct teaching learning processes effectively, and develop social projects, and also be engaged in research, right? I didn't find too much information about Villarreal University, you know, but they have the specialty of English, yes, English. And I didn't find anything about the number of credits it's required to get the bachelor and the license. Monterrico University, yes, Monterrico National Pedagogic Institute also provides the specialty of English, only English, not English Spanish, right? Only English. The length of studies is 10 semesters, yes, 5 years, right? That is 5 years. And obviously, the graduate profile of these people is identified and describe educational phenomena, handles updated and contextualized disciplinary content, processes creative, innovative, and intercultural educational experiences, right? I found out also some information about the Amazonian University of the Amazonia, they're called. Yes, here it was very nurturing because they have many specialties: English, German, English, French, English, Portuguese, and obviously they graduate by defending a thesis, but we don't have any information about holding also the international certification to be graduated as English teachers. Under the private sector, I found Catholic University. Yes, Catholic University also have this specialty of English, and the curriculum is similar to the other universities. Yes, and UCL University also has this specialty of English, you know, but they want bilingual. They want their students to be bilingual. This was one of the famous, you know, and challenging information that I found out. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
No, thank you, dear Johnny, for a very complete pieces of information about where to study. Something that I want to mention, and Julio also mentioned, is that before we used to have this SEAD program, Sistema de Educación a Distancia, which was very helpful, but unfortunately, because of different politics of the government, we don't have it anymore, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So before we go to your last comments and finish our wonderful and beautiful roundtable, there are like 35 people here. So if anybody here wants to express or say something about the topic today, you are free. Please raise your hand and speak and say something briefly, please, about the topic we are doing today. Anyone? Yeah, Magda Castro.
Magda Castro.
All
Hello,
right.
Magda.
Hi,
Hello,
Magda.
good morning, everybody.
Good morning,
Thank you
Magda.
very much for your insights and for your viewpoints. Thank you very much, Arthur, Ralph, Julio, Johnny, my dear teacher. There are many things that have been said today regarding teaching English in Peru. And I do agree with all of you. I mean, teaching English in Peru is very complicated. It's not easy for teachers. But I also think that many efforts have been made, in order to upgrade our teachers, not only knowledge or command of the language, but as well the teaching competencies, which, as you have said, the methodologies have been changing through the years. And due to the pandemic, teachers had to, they had to experiment a big challenge, and they deal with that. And I think that they are trying to do their best. I've been involved in some training courses in different regions in Peru. And I can happily say that teachers are eager to learn. I mean, they are really committed to improve themselves. And they are always participating in these kind of training courses, sometimes sponsored by the Ministry of Education through the UGEL and RES, but also on their own. Some of them are eager to invest their own money. And so in that, I think that it's that's a good sign, because there is a willing to change, for good. And in both, as I said before, as their teaching competencies and also their command of the language. Now, regarding the third question, I think that Ralph's ideas and Arturo's ideas are great. I think that we should we should be united, as one. Even when we have different kinds of organizations for English teachers here in Peru, we need to be united. Because I do agree with Ralph, we need to have a voice to be heard officially. Maybe when we realized that the national policy, Inglés, Puertas al Mundo, por ejemplo, when it was closed, I think that we could not say a thing. And I think that was a pity, because the national policy was a kind of umbrella that let us develop some projects regarding the teaching of English. And now that we haven't said a word about that, we just complained through different, through different media, maybe Facebook or others, or in other scenarios, that we could participate, and we say, oh, what a pity that we don't have the policy anymore, or we want to know who changed that. But I think that the most important thing here is what can we do, in order to make ourselves heard, as a group, as teachers of English. Yes. And to make them understand the importance of the teaching and learning in English nowadays, especially nowadays, because definitely English is a tool for all of us, not only for us as teachers, but for our students. And it is important, and we have heard Johnny and Julio, who are running also some courses at universities. You are academic coordinators and directors. So I think that that we need, there is a great need for our students to have certain level of English. But if we do not start that in basic education, students are going to continue coming to university with no level of English, and that won't change. So I think that the basis should be improved, as you said, our friend Antijama, you said that even kindergarten teachers should be formed in order to teach English, because that's what we need. We need to change from the basis. And well, once again, thank you very much for sharing your insights and your viewpoints. I think that there is always important to make a stop and reflect on what we are doing, and also as teachers, what do we want? No, I have heard you saying that teachers are expected to do many things, but sometimes nobody asks them, okay, what do you want? Why are you teaching? What is your objective, no, as a teacher? Because if the ministry or if the government or if the schools or in any institutions don't set the objectives, I mean, as teachers, we should have a goal. And talking about, you talk about young people, I have known about different kinds of projects that new people who are leaving the Monterrico, for example, they are trying to, I mean, they made very nice projects, no? And they are also teaching online. They have their own company. So I think that, as you said, there is a new breed of, of English teachers. And I think that they are going to make a change. And probably they are going to try to do this, mixing the digital world with the face-to-face world. I think that they will do this better, I think, because they are digital native. So
Yes,
that's something that we have to take into account as well. Yeah. And
Thank you
that's it.
so,
But
thank you so much,
very
dear.
much.
Thank you, dear Thank you, dear Magda. Now, please allow me to introduce Raj Gill from Canada. She's the president of our International English Online Meetings. So I would like her to say, sorry, Raj, that I invite you out of the spot, to say something about the human side that we should have and pay attention to if we decide to become teachers. Raj?
Well, I've interested and very inspired by what I've heard. What I want to say is that teachers are educators. You're educating global citizens, because with English, we can go anywhere in the world and understand each other and communicate with each other. So, and also what I'm hearing today is how much you as educators have an opportunity to influence the future. How things are going to happen. So I'm very inspired by what I've heard, and I wish you continued success in these conversations, because they help us keep connected with what is working and what needs to be attended to. So I celebrate you and all your contributions.
Thank you so much, dear President in Canada. I hope you can visit us in Peru someday in the future.
Would love to.
Okay, so unfortunately, we don't have much more time, so I'm going to give each of you a few minutes to say goodbye. And thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, because it's been a very reflecting day. It's been a very interesting morning, because we have learned a lot. Many people in Facebook Live are connected, and this will be a legacy, Arturo, as you said. This video will help many young teachers like Tanya and many others. Thank you, Tanya, for being here. So who is going to start to say his or her final words today?
Jaime, I would like
Arturo.
to share. I would like to share.
Don't worry. Share,
yes.
Share, Arturo.
Can I share? Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes.
Give me a second,
please. 10 seconds.
Arturo. I have prepared this little.
Don't worry. Don't worry.
I do, because I don't want to take your time away. Wait, give me a second. I don't know why this.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, this is something I prepared for this event today, which is English language teaching in Peru. Okay, and this is the first thing I would like us to reflect on. I put this title, which is Looking Back to Shape the Future. We have to remember that in 1950, only half of the population of the world had some instruction. Today, 85% of them have it. Okay, from 2000 to 2018, the percentage of children that didn't attend classes went down from 26% to 17% worldwide. All this before the pandemic. Okay, the bad news of these figures is that after many years of their school desk, they learned very little or almost nothing, which is sad to say. Okay, not according to what I think, according to the PISA exams and everything. No, in most of our countries. In 2019, the World Bank found out that less than half of 10-year-old students in developing countries that host more than 90% of the children population couldn't read nor understand a simple text. I'm not being negative, I'm just putting pure figures, okay? The World Bank says that the percentage of 10-year-old students in countries of medium or low income that can't read nor understand simple text has increased from 57% in 2019 to approximately 70% today after the pandemic. 25% of our countries have no plans to help students recover the learning they have lost during the pandemic, according to UNICEF, and another 25% have inadequate strategies. Making it very fast, only this, what would happen in the next 5 years is Jaime and all of you, future of VLT in the world, maybe, hybrid model, okay? New changes and adaptations in the next 5 years, still to come. Our political scenario will finally shape up, okay? E-commerce will keep on growing, okay? Not every course will be completely online, especially for young learners, okay? Peruvians are not 100% digital, something we know. Some provinces are still with very poor sign-on. And we shouldn't just copy foreign models, we should adapt them to our reality. And what is the dream? Almost finished, Jaime, I won't take you long. Look at this.
Don't worry. It's very important information, the one that you are presenting.
This is the dream in the year 2050. All teachers being part of an official register, okay, in Peru. One unique teachers association or coalition. All teachers with an FC certificate or equivalent as a minimum to teach. Public and private. Adequate health insurance for everyone. At the beginning of the pandemic, this was not something that happened. One laptop per teacher, minimum, if you want to teach. Hybrid teaching, good internet connection everywhere in Peru, minimum wage per hour, updating and upgrading opportunities for everyone, mobility. By mobility, well, most of us understand what mobility is, that we can teach anywhere in the world. Members of a Latin American or international teachers coalition or association, and research papers, as Johnny said. I think this is very important.
Fortunately, yes, nothing to do with age, right?
No. Fortunately,
because I'm 58.
Yes, and this is the year 2050, Jaime, and look how we are today. And with this, I finish. With this, I finish. Teachers belonging to different unofficial registers, okay? Many teachers associations and Facebook groups. A small number of teachers with FCE certificate or equivalent yet. A small number of adequate health insurances. A small number of laptops, mainly smartphones, among public teachers. Online teaching, face-to-face teaching in many cases suspended. Poor or no internet connection, especially in rural areas. No minimum wage established. Very limited updating and upgrading opportunities. Limited mobility. No international association or coalition. And a very small number of research papers being put together. And that's it, Jaime. I won't take you long. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Arturo. It's been a very illustrative, do you say that in English? It's been a very important piece of information. And Carmen Casera is asking, and me too, if you could share that info with all of us, if it is possible.
Sure. Yeah,
okay.
I have to give you the link through the chat, right?
Perfect. Please, Johnny, your final words today, just today.
Okay, my dear friend, here I am, okay? So for me, I'm going to say my last words in this international round table, okay? Yes, I agree totally with Arthur, yes. It's a good reflection, yes. There are lots of things to do, oh my dear, yes. So for me, I think the government needs to establish decentralization policies. Yes, this is something that worries me a lot. Obviously, Lima is not Peru, yes, Peru is the provinces, the highland, you know, the Amazonian jungle. Yes, we need to do a lot for these people who do not have access to education, right? I think the second requirement for me is we need to strengthen professional identity. This is something that I found out. We have to love our careers, right? If we don't love our careers, there is nothing to do, right? We need to do activities in order to recover this identity with our education career, right? It's necessary, in other words, to strengthen this professional identity. Another aspect that I think we need to consider is the empowerment of our associations, right? There is another point of view nowadays, and I agree with you. We need to be listened, yes, in different levels, not only among us, but also to the authorities at university level, at the politicians level. They need to listen to us. Maybe you can convince them to change their attitudes and be positive to education sector, right? And we need to rethink the concept of education for the 21st century. Education is directed towards the market right now, yes? And what the market demands is not what the human beings want to be. This is something very important. We should give our students education for life. Education in Peru is commercialized. Education does not develop the power of the citizens. Yes? So we need to recover the ability to reflect and understand that education is the backbone of this society. If you neglect education, there is no future. All right, so let's make our authorities to understand this. I have a very nice quote that I'll be finishing with this, my participation. Education is a route to equality of opportunity for all, a healthy and just democracy, a productive economy, a sustainable development. Education should reflect the enduring values that contribute to these ends. These including value, the wider groups to which we belong, the diversity in our society, and the environment in which we live. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, dear Johnny, for such a great participation today. We have learned a lot from you, and you are the only lady. That's why I only invited you, because I knew that you would do a great job, and you have done it. Thank you so much, dear Johnny. Ralph?
Well, I like to see things in perspective from a more global point of view. And I think that in this conversation we've seen the value of teacher associations, communities of practice, whatever you want to call it. But I think that joining a group, whether that's an association or a group in your region or something, is a valuable tool in the sense that it kickstarts your process for continuous professional development. But I'd also like to emphasize something else that has been discussed in this group, which is what's beyond teaching, you know. And I think it's important that we start thinking that we have to infuse in our teachers the necessity to carve, little by little, an international professional profile, right? I think that, as I said, the very first step, of course, is joining a group and learning from others, learning by others, learning through others, you know, whatever.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
whatever you want to say. That's the first step. But in creating an international professional profile, I think that teachers need to start thinking beyond, outside of the box, let's say, outside of the constraints they are in right now. I think that my picture of some teachers, I don't want to generalize this, but some teachers are constrained you know, in a box of, you know, laws and requirements and you know, models, etc. And they, little by little, they have to start thinking that they have to come out of that box and look at international frameworks. I think that what Johnny said, what Johnny mentioned about all the offer that's currently present in Peru, is one element of this. If you look at international frameworks, bachelor's degrees, licenses, and all that is one aspect of the frameworks that international education is looking for in teachers. Beyond that, of course, or alongside, of course, is the level of English, which we have discussed broadly here. But there are other areas of professional development that teachers need to detect. So I think teachers need to start paying attention and act on the gaps in their profile as they develop. Of course, you know, there are gaps in that international framework. There might be gaps that they can identify and say, internationally, these organizations are looking for this. But am I strong, or have I developed all this, let's say, aspects of my professional life? Things like, things that you have discussed, for example, digital competence. Do I understand my students? Do I understand how teachers develop? Do I understand policies, etc., etc.? So start paying attention to that and act on this, on those gaps. And little by little, of course, some of the key things is strengthening your remote teaching skills and your intercultural skills. Something that Arturo mentioned, you know, in his experience working with other countries or delivering, you know, sessions to other countries. If you want to become a global teacher, you really need to focus on remote teaching skills and intercultural skills, because you'll be working across different cultures, let's say. And you will have to be more than ever mindful of special education needs, because right now, what global teachers are being asked to do, have a special focus on special education needs, because the more we move towards global education, the more we need to address those. And special education, for example, is not something we're taught as part of our education curriculum, especially in Peru. You have to learn it from somewhere else, right? So you need to be mindful of that and act on that, taking courses, doing professional specializations on special education needs, as well as, for example, other aspects that are globally embraced, like, for example, equality, diversity, and inclusion. Those principles are really embedded in many international opportunities. So if you're not familiar with that, it's time to act on that. And of course, as you have seen, you know, once you have completed the picture, once you feel you're strong enough to become a global teacher, then, you know, what you do is you keep on working on becoming attractive to the market. You know, you have to become attractive to the market. You've seen how many teachers use networks, social networks, or professional networks like LinkedIn to promote themselves internationally, so they become attractive to the market, right? And that's why I wanted to make an emphasis, you know, beyond, you know, our Peru context and all that, and try to give like a more global perspective to the teaching and learning in Peru. Thank you.
No, thank you, dear Ralph, for such important points of view, And finally, Julio Valladares.
Thank you. What can I say after Arturo, Yoni, and Ralph?
Yes, what can you say?
That's a difficult task. I would summarizing in what lies ahead for everybody. You know? And I think we should start working together as teachers. We should work with our peers. I think we should work on reflection. And being a reflective teacher implies being a collaborative teacher, being a teacher who thinks out of the box, you know, being a teacher who is ready to change. And now, you know that the globalization, which is the accelerating globalization, the changes in the technological area, we need to be on the run, yes? And the typical phrase, and so much used cliche, keep on learning, no? Well, let's put it into practice, because everybody says, yeah, let's keep on learning, but when it comes, sorry, I don't have time, sorry, I have family problems, sorry, I don't have money. Yes, those are real problems. But if we're going to just get stuck on those problems, we're not going to go anywhere. And as Ralph says, we have to sell ourselves. We have to become global teachers. We have to, Raj also mentioned that we are in a society that we have to work with different cultures. So there is plenty of opportunity to keep on learning. Plenty of opportunity. So, but we have to start thinking, and we have to just give one step at a time. I'm not going to run for a doctorate now because, you know, yes, I know that I need a doctorate to start working on research. No, just start working with a case study. No, that's the first step. So what lies ahead? That's a question that we should keep in our minds. Working towards building up a united front regarding to what Arturo mentioned of teachers of English, so we can really make a change. If we just work through different groups, the Ministry of Education is not going to see teachers of English, and we are not going to at least try to make a change. Yes, try to fight for that. No, we've been discussing this for not only years but decades, and we're still here, no, discussing. We have to do something, yes, and we also have to. What lies ahead? Lies ahead is there are unprecedented changes, no, and challenges. I would say changes and challenges in the social area, in the economical area, in the environmental area. We have to pay attention to this globalization that is coming, that is already here, that continues growing. Yes. So we have to pay attention to those details. Yeah, they may say, but Julio, that doesn't have to do anything to do with the teaching world, but it does. It does, because remember, we're not just instructors of English, and I've been repeating this phrase for many years. We have to go from instructors to educators. And if we don't have that clear, remember that the power that we have in our hands is the power to make people better by being better ourselves. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Julio Valladares. And before I say my final words today, I would like to ask you, Medalit, in Switzerland, to say briefly a few points of view about what you have heard, Medalit. And thank you because you have been here the whole 2 hours and a half in Switzerland, and now it must be like 7 p.m.
Yeah, the situation in Switzerland is completely different. And the schools require local teachers, but they have to have pedagogical instruction qualifications. And they are supported by the it's a system so completely different, because it's not every canton. There are 26 cantons, and every canton has their own rules, their own regulations, and their own decisions. Public schools nowadays, they don't hire teachers that they don't have pedagogical qualifications for teaching English.
Right.
Yes, the qualifications are very high, and the 26 cantons, which are overseen by the State Secretariat of Education, And research and innovation, they are SERI, yes, more or less like this. It means that every canton, they have their own regulations, their own decisions, but they are seen by the state. So they take their own decisions. And Mr. Field said that why the Minister of Education in Peru builds schools. And that's why here they will also say why, but it's not why, it's a big why, because education, the secretary, the minister of, is not a minister of education here, is the State Secretariat in German for Education, Research and Innovation. This is the big name. And they are, of course, they see what involves really education, not about building a house or building a school. And here, the most of this, I mean that more or less, I can tell you that we are independent. Every canton is independent, and they have the qualifications that they expect is very high, and a teacher has to study 3, 4, 5 years to be a teacher according to the canton. But if you want to be an English teacher, of course you have to have a degree, and CELTA, Delta, TESOL, and that's what that is the difference. And what I have seen, what I've in Peru, is that the education hasn't changed all over these years. It's the same. Even I could say it's going back and back, and I would not expect. I'm really sorry to say that for these years, I don't think so, that I would expect something is going to change. And Mr. Julio Valladares said that maybe the Minister of Education is doing nothing for the education, for the public schools. And what I mean is that to give a little bit of my knowledge is, we have to do ourselves in Peru as a teachers individually, because we cannot expect that somebody's coming. I mean, in the reality of Peru, no, because I cannot say that here is it's completely, it's, what can I say? It's completely different. Here, education is the most important. Health and education is the most important. And in Peru, I would say that that we need to do individually. We have to improve ourselves as a teachers. We have to study and study, and it doesn't mean that we have to pay, because on internet now we have a lot of programs in internet that they are free. And I don't remember that we can study with many important universities. If you need to get the certificate, you can pay, but if you don't have the money, or you don't need a certificate, you don't pay, but you can study some courses. That's what I think we should do.
Okay, thank you, dear Medali, for such a deep reflection. Thank you so much. Thank you, Julio. Thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Ralph. And thank you, Arturo. I hope that when I upload the video in the YouTube channel, you share it with your colleagues, your students and friends, so the authorities in our country will listen to us, and maybe we can do something. And I agree with Medali and Julio and Johnny and Ralph and Arturo that if we have to start with ourselves, work with ourselves, make the change in the place where we work, and do not expect the ministry or the authorities to do something, but we need to start doing that change. Thank you so much, everyone. Now for me, it's time to do the washing and the cooking and the cleaning. And I'm sure that you have
Not only
have
you,
to do
Jaime,
the-
not only you.
Very good. I knew Arturo. Julio doesn't say anything. Ralph doesn't say anything. So maybe they are not allowed to talk about it. So, so thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, everyone who was present here. Thank you in Facebook Live, all the opinions, points of view, and everything else. Thank you so much, and see you, everyone, soon. Bye-bye.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.